You're listening to Poetry Is on 88.5 WMNF Tampa, WMNF.org. And we are about to get into something a little bit different. And as they say, what? Take it away? Say that one more time. I don't think they heard you.
Stood
Let's go.
From the suburbs to the hood. May you judge us by our hearts and not by our mistakes. And see that we get our breakthrough, however long that it takes.
All right, y'all. So we are in the midst of Mental Health Awareness Month.
But there's no way we can
right?
live for Jesus.
I was playing this joint. This is DMX The Prayer. This is actually a live version of it that he did with a little bit of ad-libs. No matter what you want to say about DMX, I can guarantee you twice on Sunday and every other day of the week, nobody prayed harder than DMX did when he actually got down and went to get into something. But again, we are into the first week of Mental Health Awareness Month. So with that being said, we are definitely going to try and zen it out today. We're going to zen it out. And we are going to let some artists speak, being that they may have a voice similar to some other individuals going through certain things in life. So we're going to be doing about shared experiences today. And I'm hoping that in one of the rabbit holes that we're able to go down today, I can touch on something that reaches out and touches you, and hopefully brings you guys a little bit of peace while you're here rocking with us tonight on the Stage Show. Again, if it's your first time, each and every Sunday night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., you have one of the longest running poetry shows and the only spoken word show on air in radio here in Tampa Bay as we get ready to go into our 20th year. I definitely feel old saying that. I've been here for about half of that time. But definitely love and shout out to everybody. And again, this is about the poets and the lovers of poetry. So with that being said, I've got a lot of things I was going to get into. All right. We have some favorites.
Yes, we do.
Right? This artist, his piece, the one that we're about to play, is so amazing because you would probably be short-sighted if you just said it was like a mental health poem, or if you just said it was a love poem. It was a poem of a person in love who has OCD and mental health, and they address it and they deal with it, and they love so hard in this poem that I have to like put it out there to the people. So with that being said, we're going to go into this performance of Neil Hilborn. Again, that's Neil Hilborn with OCD right here on Poetry Is on 88.5 WMNF Tampa, WMNF.org.
The first time I saw her, everything in my head went quiet. All the tics, all the constantly refreshing images just disappeared. When you have obsessive compulsive disorder, you don't really get quiet moments. Even in bed, I'm thinking that lock the door, yeah, watch me in Jack, lock the door, yeah, watch me in Jack. When I saw her, the only thing I could think about was the hairpin curve of her lips, or the eyelash on her cheek, the eyelash on her cheek, the eyelash on her cheek. I knew I had to talk to her. I asked her out 6 times. In 30 seconds. She said yes after the third one, but none of them felt right, so I had to keep going. On our first date, I spent more time organizing my by color than I did eating or fucking to her. But she loved it. She loved that I had to kiss her goodbye 16 times or 24 times if it was Wednesday. She loved it took me forever to walk home because there are lots of cracks on our sidewalk. When we moved in together, she said she felt safe, like no one would ever rob us because I definitely locked the door 18 times. I'd always open her mouth when she talked, when she talked, when she talked, when she talked, when she talked. When she said she loved me, her mouth would curl up at the edges. At night, she'd lay in bed and watch me turn all the lights off and on and 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 off. She'd close her eyes and imagine that days and nights were just passing in front of her. Some mornings, I'd start kissing her goodbye, but she'd just leave because I was making her late for work. When I stopped at a crack in the sidewalk, she just kept walking. When she said she loved me, her mouth was a straight line. She told me I was taking up too much of her time. Last week, she started sleeping at her mother's place. She told me that she shouldn't have let me get so attached to her, that this whole thing was a mistake. But how can it be a mistake that I don't have to wash my hands after I touch her? Love is not a mistake. It's killing me. She can find me away from this, and I just can't. I can't go out and find someone new because I always think of her. Usually, when I obsess over things, I see germs sneaking into my skin. I see myself crushed by an endless succession of cards, and she was the first beautiful thing I ever got stuck on. I want to wake up every morning thinking about the way she holds her steering wheel, how she turns shower knobs like she's opening a safe, how she blows out candles, 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 blows out. Now, I just think about who else is kissing her. I can't breathe because he only kisses her once. He doesn't care if it's perfect. I want her back so bad. I leave the door unlocked. I leave the lights on.
And again, that was Neil Hilborn, last name Hilborn, with OCD. Definitely one of my favorites.
It's a classic. It is definitely a part of our regular on-air rotation.
I try to throw it in whenever I can, but I also love it so much I have to make sure that I try not to throw it in just because I want to. So shout out to Neil. We would love to get you on the show, brother. If somebody has a contact or knows him, definitely reach out and let him know, man. We'd love to have him on the air and speak with him about his art. Okay, so I try to be very mindful in crafting this playlist for tonight. So hopefully I can get to everything. I may not, but we'll see. All right. I came across this piece, I want to say maybe about 2 months ago, and we played it. And I just thought it was a very interesting take on mental health for men of color, especially those in the inner city, because it's not as frowned upon as it once was, but it is more that people don't want to reveal themselves, and they hide this sickness that they're dealing with, and thus they don't want anybody to know. They try to shape their interactions and try to make them fit a narrative that most people would be able to digest and palate when it's not always so. So I think you remember this. It's so funny because Wally B, who was also a former host here at this radio show, he used to have a nickname, and his nickname was Sleeveless Jackson. And he had Sleeveless Jackson. He had Rufus Chainsaw. So actually, Sleeveless Jackson was Truth, which is a poet out of Tallahassee. He now lives in Texas. But Wally B was, of course, Rufus Chainsaw. But anyway, this piece is T Sleeveless with Teach a Boy to Cry. You guys can find this on YouTube. I'm sure he has a bunch of places where it's posted. But it's just a really, really good poem. And it's something that, you could sit down and listen to with a young man and, ask them their opinions and ask them their thoughts and see. It's a good way to get them to open up about speaking about things that they probably wouldn't do on their own. So with that said, I hope this piece reaches you guys. This is T Sleeveless with Teach a Boy to Cry right here on Poetry Is, WMNF Tampa, WMNF.org.
T Sleeveless. that shit. I'll do my best, dog. What up, Philly? My name is T Sleeveless. The number one hardest thing we all have to do, to double tap on the last two poets. Mental health is everything. It don't matter what situation you're in. You could have everything going perfectly fine, your finances, your house, whatever the case may be. If your head is not on straight, nothing else matters, dog. So tonight, I write a lot of mental health poetry. Tonight, I wrote a piece for the men. As a man myself, I was subjected to a lot of emotional brutality just growing up. And the hardest realization I came to is that nobody really gets. So this is just a piece for the men. This is called Teach a Boy to Cry. People think the deconstruction of a man is some loud, violent occurrence, this outpour of bitterness towards the world, and in reality, the deconstruction of a man is a silent film, a common surgical procedure that the world didn't know it was trained to do. The breaking of a boy is the world's quietest natural disaster. As a man, there is no such thing as being stuck between a rock and a hard place. You either use the stones at rock bottom to build a way out, or you get buried by them. Ain't nobody coming to save you. The entire world is trying to construct you into its perfect little image, and the people around you are the ones who fuel the process of your manufactured masculinity. Some of us are going to make it through assembly, but we need to watch out for our defective counterparts, because the whole world is going to use their flaws to define all of us. Luckily, most defective product is aware of its own shortcomings and tends to destroy itself given enough time alone with its imperfections. This abridged explanation of the process is how you become a man or a monster. Everybody knows what a monster does. Everybody judges the monster. Nobody questions its creator. Some of us are manufactured to make light of our peril, with jokes, if you will. Male comedians are magicians in this way, how they take their pain and airbrush it into something laughable. He, ha, ha, joke about a failed suicide. The crowd laughs, the curtains close, the comedian drinks all the way home. A man's tears are just funny that way. How they have to be translated to be accepted. How they have to be transcribed into an art form to be worthy of observation. How you have to bleed artistically to become a worthy topic of conversation. Funny how we can joke about a man's misery, but nobody taught the boy to cry. But they taught him how to fight. Nobody tucked him in at night so he doesn't sleep at night. Nobody offers protection to the protectors. Nobody provides the providers with provisions. Nobody looks after the overseer. Nobody has ever tried to guide the man who steers. Everybody judges the weak men. Nobody checks on the strong ones. Only other men know how subtle a difference before the transition. Nobody taught the boy to cry, so he would do it at all the wrong times. In the barber chair, getting casket sharp, remembering the funeral of a failed relationship. In the grocery aisle, breaking down because he's weighed down by the tears collecting in his baggage at a soccer game, remembering what it was like to be a boy running towards a goal. Most men will only experience unconditional love from their mothers, and some of us don't even get that. Most of us have never even felt appreciation or respect without conditions or hidden intentions. We don't know what it sounds like to hear, "I see you, and I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're here. You really make a difference." Yet the expectation is to constantly be displaying the strength and love that the world is hesitant in conveying. We're expected to have a thick skin but get judged if it turns to a hard shell. The first step in being a man is ignoring the hunger. Cause yes, boy, you're gonna be starving. Starved of attention, starved of affirmation, starved of love, starved of being told that you are enough. Step 2 in being a man is comfortability with replaceability. You are only as good as you are useful. You are only as valuable as you are needed by others. Should there ever come a day, boy, where you fail to provide everybody with a smiling face, then do not be surprised when they say all men do is take up space, and you are swiftly replaced. Step 3 in being a man is overcoming your fear of the fire, because almost everything you will ever try to build will go up in flames. Relationships, careers, hobbies, and yes, you are always to blame. Step 4 in being a man is understanding by the time you finally get all the right answers, these questions will have already changed. You might achieve the strength of Herculean fiction, trying to balance the weight of all these contradictions. Be a man, they say, definition unknown, description keep changing. We men, so empty, so irritable, so this, so that, we get told what we we are so much we've accepted that who we are ain't even up to us. The blame is always on us regardless. One guilty man's actions requires an innocent man's explanation. Otherwise, you're all guilty by gender association. There are 4 times as many male suicidal ideation because it's been hammered in our head that we're falling short of our societal expectations. Imagine being in a world of hurt for 100 different reasons during a nationwide emasculation season. There is a unique brand of sadness that follows being hated without reason. It ain't no secret. While over 30% of us have attempted to stop breathing, nobody even mentions the men who have succeeded. As the saying goes, every failure is one step closer to a successful attempt. There is no such thing as an attempted suicide. A man's soul dies long before his body has a chance to realize. A man with an old soul is just a boy who contemplated going ghost. For every woman that suffers the same fate, 4 men will follow her to the grave. And I try to hide the stats from the poet because he might romanticize them. He might mistake this tragedy for a love story. He might write a poem in place for the suicide notes that were never left behind because nobody taught him otherwise. So who's gonna teach these boys to cry while they're still alive? A man with nothing to lose will view everything as something to take. A child that isn't embraced by the village will burn the village down. And he will stare as everything that didn't love him back contorts and cracks. He will ease his way into the fire until he finally feels some warmth.
That is REM with Everybody Hurts in the background. And it's true, man. Shout out again to T Sleeveless with Teach a Boy to Cry. Just, teaching young men how to manage and navigate their emotions is something that's very, 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 very important in this world. I think everybody, but being that I am a guy, I can only speak from this perspective. But it's very, very important. The human body is one of the most adaptive things in the universe, and we can figure things out and we can learn how to work with situations, but we have to know how to understand what the problem is to be able to find a possible or proper solution that'll work for that person, because it's not going to work the same for everybody.
It won't, and you made a 100% agree with all the statements you made. I also want to point out with what you were saying and emphasize that being teachable is so important, that we have these difficult conversations. And if you don't know how to have these conversations with your loved ones or your friends and associates who are going through a mental health issue, then it's important that you remain in a teachable position to where you can be taught how to have those difficult conversations. Because suicide rates are on the rise. There is a mental health crisis happening.
Yeah. I personally lost a friend who, to suicide, who literally was just hanging out with us like 20 minutes before and went home, and we never saw him again. And nobody watching him leave, hey, what's going on? I'll be back. And nobody would have guessed that that was a situation that they were dealing with. So it's not easy knowing how to be there for somebody in this situation, and it can be definitely very, very frustrating. And I apologize for that on behalf of everybody who suffers with mental health issues, either one or the other. We definitely apologize for how it affects other people just in trying to be in our lives, right, and continue to be there with us. So yeah, it's tough. And like I said, if it's tough for you guys, just think about how tough it is for us trying to navigate how to ineffectively communicate what it is that we're dealing with.
Exactly.
When we're trying to speak with you, it's almost like a child who is unable to communicate and gets frustrated. That's what life is like. It's just so tough.
Lost in translation.
Especially when you have somebody who's willing and really, really wants to help out. All right. So we're going to go ahead and transition from this. I think it's time for me to hear from some of other poets that have something to speak about on the subject. I'm in full support of it, and I think that we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So REM, if you guys don't know it, go ahead and get familiar. They are an older band, but they do good, true music. Hopefully, if you like the vibe, you'll play it just for a background for yourself one day. You know, write a poem to it or something. All right, this is Everybody Hurts by REM right here on 88.5 WMNF Tampa, WMNF.org. And this is Poetry Is.
Sometimes I miss being sick. The grimiest part of me wishes I had stayed in that familiar city of gray and mental illness and whatever the opposite of healing is, where there was nothing to laugh about but plenty to write about. I've considered myself to be recovered from my eating disorder for 3 years, but I still write about it in present tense. I also still keep all of my exes in my contact list. And for once, I don't want to write about this. For the first time, I am embarrassed instead of proud of all of the mad things I have done for happiness. When a friend at dinner makes a casual comment on calories, the scoreboard in my head illuminates with numbers again. Once, I cut a ribbon the size I wanted to be and wore it around my waist like a bracelet. Bathroom scales make me feel nostalgic. Like a scrapbook, I flip through snapshots of my sickness, the suppers of tobacco smoke and red lipstick, how I used to pack my lunchbox with floss and teeth whitening strips. Last night, I painted my nails when I was hungry. I can't eat until the polish is dry. I don't want to go into more detail because what if you mistake this poem for an instruction manual? I don't know how to talk about the rabbit hole without accidentally inviting you to follow me down it. When recovery is not all yoga mats and tea and avocados, it is work. It is reminding myself that sucking on ice cubes does not count as dinner. Body, forgive me. It is not healthy to drink so much water that your body becomes a bathtub your organs float in like loofahs. Body, forgive me. Trying to ignore the caloric calculator in my head is like trying to ignore television subtitles, and sometimes I just can't. Body, forgive me. Recovery is hard work. Not wanting to die is hard work. Every time you asked if I was full, I heard you say fat, but I'm trying so hard not to do that. But I cannot unmemorize the calories of a peppermint. Wanting to die is not the same as wanting to come home. And I'm still trying to remember that.
Again, that was, of course, Blythe Baird with Relapse on Poetry Is. And with that said, we're going to be getting into other perspectives on the subject of mental health awareness. We are not going to demonize it. We are not going to make it a villain, even though it can be a villain. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about awareness and being knowledgeable of what it is that people are going through, people are dealing with, what we ourselves as individuals are dealing with. We try to minimize it. thinking that we're doing favors for other people, and then they're not 100% sure of how to interact with us. So because of that, that's why I definitely want to make sure that, we definitely talk on this. But I have one that I found, and it was just kind of like a funny vibe to me. If you guys don't know, I am a native New Yorker, so that New York vibe is always something that I'm about. And I don't even know if this person is a New Yorker. I'm just saying the vibe of this poem was kind of like so New York. So I think we're gonna go into this. This piece is "I don't have an anxiety problem." It's like, I don't have an anxiety problem, you do. Like, oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I feel that. So we're going to get right into that right here on Poetry Is on 88.5 WMNF Tampa, WMNF.org.
The day I met him, I actually showed up to the party on time. Called it fate. I don't believe in coincidence. I think that's why I fall in love so damn hard. Each moment is meant to be. Every conversation is the universe telling me something. When we were stretched across two coasts, he bent the continent in half just to kiss me. I thought this meant something. So naturally, I started planning our wedding. I mean, nothing too big, but preferably by the beach. Lots of colors, good Indian food. We both come in on horses, no big deal. And we honeymoon in Tahiti, have 3 kids, a boy, a girl, another boy. Yeah, this is the part where you call me a crazy millennial. We don't even have a picture together, and it's 2017. We were never in a relationship, just a modern day situationship. Meaning, I saw our expiration date, I just decided to ignore it. Like, I know he's emotionally unavailable right now, but we'll work through it on his way to becoming my husband. And I know I haven't actually said the words, I love you, but it's implied. When he eventually stopped calling, I thought, but what about our beautiful unborn babies? I searched for the perfect song to describe our situation, and when I found it, I did not send it to him. I was afraid of seeming too attached, emotional, in my feelings. One day, after having sex, I texted him first. I wanted to, have a conversation. He, in turn, said, want to know what your problem is? Your anxiety is going to scare dudes away. I became a soundproof room in a matter of minutes, internalized everything, and then wondered why it was so hard to get him out of my system. I don't have an anxiety problem. I have a loving people who don't love me back problem, and that causes anxiety. It has become way too easy to label a powerful woman as crazy, too demanding, difficult to please. Now I have created 2 versions of myself. One to protect the other. I see the good in people, and this isn't always my best quality. It means I stay longer than I should. It means I stay even after I have left. But it also means I'm not afraid of imagining the best possible scenario. I am bold enough to believe I deserve it. To this day, I am his best kept secret. Good enough to love in silence, but never while the whole world watches. I don't know much about love. I don't know much about breathing either, but I do it effortlessly, like I would die without it. Most men are threatened by my power, which is to say most men are threatened by my love. I will not apologize for any of it. I deserve someone who will dream big with me, who will love me out loud, and I promise when we do get worth it.
And listen, y'all, I like that piece. And the reason why I actually wanted to play that was because sometimes, hold on, let me get some music in the background. There we go. Get the pianos going. The reason why I wanted to play that is because for you guys, I want to make us understand that sometimes people will look at us as being crazy when we're just passionate, and you have to know how to pick and choose your partners. Mm-hmm. Don't get labeled as crazy because this person doesn't know how to love you or love you properly or love you the way that you need to be loved. Amen. You have to know what it is that you need and what it is that you're getting and see the differences and say, I can work with this or I can't. But don't let somebody label you because of what they're not able to do. So that's why I want to play that piece. And
investigate before you invest. There's no reason not to do that stuff.
I tell people, listen, if you're grown, if you're past 25, then you should be willing to wait a year to find out if you want to date somebody. Mm-hmm. And again, this is just dating. Now, look, we're grown, so whatever adults do. But when you're contemplating being in a committed relationship with somebody, I say you should take a year before that person even has qualified themselves for potentially being chosen for that role or position. Because lots of times people say, oh, I didn't know them, or they switched. That person didn't switch. You just didn't invest enough time to find out who they were. And sometimes we invest in potential versus assets. The difference is assets is what this person has. Potential is what we think is going to come in the next quarter or the next year or what have you. After a certain age, potential goes out the window. I am not dating nobody on potential. Like, I'm sorry. Like, nah. And I'm very, very like deliberate in it. And it's funny, but I did a podcast a little while ago, and somebody was asking, like, okay, well, what's your relationship credit? If you had to state what your credit is in being in a relationship, I said, oh, mine's 850, because I no longer care. I take care of all my responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? People think having a higher credit means you have a lot of debt. No, credit improves when you learn how to navigate and manage your debt. Right? And a lot of people have gone through experiences and think because they've gone through those experiences, that means that they have a certain level of growth. You have experience, but experience without knowledge will never give you wisdom that you're looking for. Yeah. So, yeah, man. Yeah, I said it.
That is definitely a interesting perspective. That's good.
I know I'm terrible sometimes, but you know, it is what it is. Hopefully you guys are enjoying yourselves tonight. If you guys want to send us a text, you can send us a text at 813-433-0885. We will read that as an email here. Or if you want to just call in and give a shout out real quick, you can hit us at the studio line, which is 813-239-9663. All right. So now I got to figure out where I'm going with this, because I had a list and I started jumping around the list. And, oh, you know what? I'm going to get into this real quick short. As a matter of fact, I can mix it. I'm going to mix this short with the music in the background like I'm a real DJ. Okay.
The playlist has been fire. If you've enjoyed the tracks you heard tonight, make sure you jump on the WMNF.org for the full replay 15 minutes after our show is over.
All right, y'all. So this piece I'm going to get into, it's a small, short piece, which is actually like a majority of poetry. We spoil you guys with 3 minutes and 5 minute poems. Most people do a minute and a half. But I just wanted to get into this quick piece. It's I'm Not Okay by Michael Tavon, or Tavon. I may be pronouncing it incorrectly, but I'm with it. I'm rocking with it. I'm sharing it with you guys. Hopefully it hits. So you're listening to Poetry Is.
After a long, stressful year, these are the words you need to hear. To say I'm not okay is not a sign of weakness. After a long, stressful year, these are the words you need to hear. To say I'm not okay is not a sign of weakness. You've been at war with yourself for so long, and you're still not easily broken. You deserve to unravel and explore the soft layers inside you. I know you don't want to feel like a burden to those who adore you, but I'm not okay is a declaration of reclaiming your power. You're not a coward. Telling the truth is the bravest act any hero could do. Let those words become a safe space. They don't have to be a prison. Say I'm not okay with pride. Never pump your heart with shame for not being okay. Through a long, stressful year, these are the words you need to hear. To say I'm not okay is not a sign of weakness. You've been at war with yourself for so long, and you're still not easily broken. You deserve to unravel and explore the soft layers inside you. I know you don't want to feel like a burden to those who adore you, but I'm not okay is a declaration of reclaiming your power. You're not a coward. Telling the truth is the bravest act any hero could do. Let those words become a safe space. They don't have to be a prison. Say I'm not okay with pride. Never pump your heart with shame for not being okay.
And again, that was Michael Tavon with I'm Not Okay. And that's where I want to kind of move into. We're going to have days when we are not okay. And we get so used to telling people just as a response, as a reflex, we'll say that, oh, I'm okay. And the first step in being able to get better is being able and being willing to tell people that I'm not okay. So with that being said, we're going to get into this next piece. This is Dear Anxiety. This is going to be by Clayton Jennings. Shout out to Clayton Jennings right here on Poetry Is 88.5 FM, WMNF Tampa.
Right where you're at and wherever that leads to find your own peace and happiness. Feel free to express yourself to release your anxiety. I want you to be able to walk out with inner strength to finally be free. Clayton, it's great to have you back. I know you don't like to share, but why don't you start us off tonight? We want to hear what you have to say.
I wake up, puddle of sweat. I have nightmares and I get back into bed. It's like these voices just keep playing on repeat in the back of my head, and I can't get them to leave me alone. 30 years old, but still hates being alone when I'm home, because that's when the voices get the loudest. Opening up like this is a moment far from my proudest, but these demons keep pressing me. I swear they're the foulest, but I've grown comfortable with their presence. My conscience is calloused. My dreams are their playground, my thoughts are their palace. I try to evict them, they return with more. Anxiety isn't an item you can return at the store. I was 10 the first time I had a panic attack. Like a punch to the stomach, there's no planning for that. And I didn't tell anyone because I was too scared about what they'd say. And I know deep down there was nothing they could do to take it away. It was my fight to fight and my battle to face. I remember that house I grew up in and how those demons would rattle that place. I'd lay awake at night just staring at the ceiling. I've spent my whole life trying to run from that feeling of being lonely, that feeling of being lost, that feeling of being sick when the lights turn off, that feeling of being depressed, that feeling of being anxious, that feeling of screaming to God, begging him to take this, only to get silence in return. I'd lay in that bed crying and I'd toss and I'd turn, and I turn and I toss to this day. The doctors gave me medication, the pastor said pray. I tried both and this anxiety still hasn't gone away. So forgive me if I fantasize about being gone today. I'm an actor who got really good at being on today, but when I turn off, I go right back into the shadows. I'm in the deep end now, but I started in the shallows, and I might just drown myself in these waves. Suburban hell, these homes are all graves. Everyone's coping with something but won't admit it. They're all too afraid, and these kids are glued to watching me. What do I say? If I'm honest with them, maybe they won't think highly of me. Everything they want me to be is what I'm dying to be, but everything I really am is what I'm not trying to be. I want them to know that they're not alone in their struggles. I wake up in tears and fall back asleep in those puddles, and I don't think I'll ever get out of this valley I'm in. Terrified that all along God has tallied my sins, and if he has, the number must be astronomical. My life is a joke and you keep reading just past the comic, because everything you think that I am is far from the truth. I wish I could open up to you and just let loose, but my vocal cords get tight when the devil pulls on this noose, and then I'm back to keeping everything bottled up inside. But he's not gonna keep me from pulling the throttle back this time. He's not gonna keep me trapped like this. I can't get out of bed, I was never made to act like this. I'm packing up my bags and he can't stop me from running fast like this. I'm not gonna be a slave to these voices of anxiety. I'm shoving the devil back for every time that he lied to me. And I'm taking a belt to these demons who whisper despair in my ear. And I'm ignoring every naysayer who stands and stares when I'm near. I'm moving forward out of this slump. I took my bruises, I took my lumps. I fell down, but I got right back up. So give me a torch and let's light that up. I'm setting fire to the devil and I'm dousing these demons in gasoline. Look at you now. Now you're not laughing at me. Now who's the one who's being tortured and punked? Now who's the one closing every door that I want? Now who's the one watching the other burn to the ground? Don't look away from me. You better turn back around. I'm not done talking to you now. I'm watching your moves. I'm on your back and I'm stalking you too. And when you try to ruin some other kid's life, I'll be stopping you too. You took 30 years of my life and I can't get that back. You told me to end my life and I nearly got killed for that. You took me down but I bounced right back. I was lost then and I got found like that. And everything you told me I wasn't, someone new told me I was. And everything you hated in me, someone new told me he loves. And when you tried to kill me with depression and anxiety, he reached in and placed hope deep inside of me. So I'm done listening to you and letting you control me. I'm announcing it now that the devil can't hold me. I'm walking away from the old me, and I'm demanding a refund on every lie that you sold me. You knew I'd find a way out sooner or later, and I found my escape in the form of a savior.
Clayton. We're here to help. Are you sure you don't want to share?
I'm good. Thank you.
And that was Clayton Jennings with Dear Anxiety right here on Poetry Is, as we get into the first week of Mental Health Awareness Month. The reason why I wanted to play that piece in particular was not just it's just a great poem, but at the end of the day, a lot of us truly stay silent. If you're doing the work, understand you have to do the work. So if you're going to be going, if you've found the strength to get yourself to a therapist, to get yourself to a support group, just be willing to maybe go a little bit farther. You got to do the work. And sometimes sharing, when it's, even though it can be uncomfortable, sometimes sharing becomes the next part of the growth, the next evolution, the next step that you need to achieve in order to get to where you're trying to go. I got this last piece that I want to play. And really, like, this is such a loving piece that I need y'all to really, really like hear it and understand it. And the reason why I say that is this. I'm just gonna let it play, but this covers the aspect of not just dealing with mental health on your own, but also from the aspect of the person who deals with it. And I'm going to be quiet and cut out right now because I want you guys to get as much of this as possible. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Poetry Is, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. And definitely continue to support not just Poetry Is, but the radio station. We want to give a shout out to the callers that came in. Ma'am, thank you so much for calling in and for your input. And thank you so much. I'm glad that my words were able to reach you. And sir, we'll try our best to make sure that message gets to the person that you need it to get to. Okay, so thank you so much.
And shout out to Eric Pages. We received your message, so we're glad that all is well. All is well here.
Shout out to Eric Pages. Eric Pages is like a super supporter. Shout out to him. All right, let me go ahead and be quiet. This is Mark Lukak, and
I had learned
this is How to Love Through Mental Illness.
Well enough to know that when she wouldn't look up at me, she had something she was really lost in. And finally, after a little while, I coaxed it out of her. What's wrong? And she said, I've been thinking about what I'm going to do with the Vespa key. I didn't know what she was talking about. We have a Vespa, but... And so she said, when I go to the Golden Gate Bridge, I need to take the scooter to get there. And when I jump off the bridge, I don't know what I'm going to do with the Vespa key. I could leave it on the scooter, but then someone might steal it. And I could bring the key with me, but they might not find my body. and then you lose the scooter too. So I've been thinking about what to do with the Vespa key. Now, I had been terrified that my wife might act on her suicidal impulses. I had hid her medication. I changed the hiding place every few days. But I didn't know exactly how I was supposed to hide the Golden Gate Bridge. I met and fell in love with my wife, Julia, when I was 18. When you're 18, you don't think about the future very much. And when I thought about it, I thought it was going to be bright and shiny. I didn't think that someday this person that I loved so much was going to get really sick, and that she was going to experience so much pain, and that I was going to spend so much time afraid and worried about whether she would live or die. We married young, and we had these incredibly charmed lives, and everything started to change when she took on a new job. And the stress she had to the work quickly became something much bigger than just normal work stress. It first manifested itself in not being able to sleep at night. And I would try to stay up with her, and I'd try to talk to her and give her massages and tell her, just relax, it's okay. And then I'd fall asleep, and I'd wake up, and she'd still be sitting on the bed staring at me. And all I wanted to do was help, and I couldn't do anything. And then one morning when I woke up, she said, God spoke to me last night. And he said, everything's going to be okay, and I'm going to be fine. Which was unsettling to hear, but it was also at least comforting. And then a few days later, I woke up and she wasn't sitting on the bed. She was frantically pacing around the room. And when I finally cornered her, she said, I spoke to the devil last night. He said, it's not going to be okay. He said, I'm not getting better. He said, I'm not worth getting better. And I didn't know what to do. I was completely over my head. And so I took her to the hospital, and I had to literally grab her. But she was kicking and screaming and trying to grab onto doorknobs in order to get her into the car to take her to the hospital. And once we got there, they admitted her to the psych ward. And let me just tell you, the psych ward is just as horrifying as it looks in the movies, with the blank white walls and the bars on the windows and the little cups with medicine. And I visited her every day from 7 to 8:30 during visiting hours. Sometimes she didn't want me to visit. She was scared that if I came close to her, this thing that was inside her might get me too. And so in this perverse way, she was trying to protect me while I was trying to protect her. And I didn't know what to do, so I did everything, because I thought somehow maybe I could love this thing out of her. Maybe I could say the right thing to her, or I could hold her close enough, or I could ask the right questions to the doctors, and I could somehow make this go away. But the days added up to weeks, and I had realized I couldn't. And the doctors were perplexed. She had no previous hint of a mental illness, and here she was. And as they described her, she was acutely psychotic. So one afternoon before the hospital visit, I went out surfing, and I didn't even really feel like surfing. I just needed to be in the ocean, and I paddled out way past the waves, and I was just kind of sitting in the middle of the open ocean, and I just sat there and I cried for a really long time, and I asked myself, is Julia going to get better? Or is this it for us? Because I didn't really sign up for this when I was 18. I don't know if I can do this. And this is going to sound like a cliche, but you have to believe me, this actually happened. 2 dolphins swam right at me. And I heard, poof, and they were right there on my right. They swam right under, and they were on my left. I looked at these dolphins, and I thought of how vast and terrifying the ocean is, and I saw them swimming together, and I knew then that if they could do it, so could I. And I was going to stand by my wife no matter what. No matter what, it turned out to be 23 days in the psych ward. And when she came home, she was very heavily medicated. And the medication changed her. It slowed her down. I'd ask her a question, and she'd often have to repeat.
You're listening to Poetry Is on 88.5 WMNF Tampa, WMNF.org. And get ready, because coming up next is colors of jazz.
And some of the medication led to really rapid weight gain. And the worst thing it did was to her eyes. These beautiful brown eyes that I looked in and fell in love with. When I looked in them now, there was nothing. It was just looking in the eyes of a non-person. But we did what we could. We took one day at a time. We trotted along. We tried to tackle the problems we could actually solve. Like, for example, the weight gain. Julia hated the weight gain. And I thought, this is something I can do. I can do something about this. So I found a nearby gym and I called them, and they were only $10 a month. So I signed us up, and they did group classes, and she loved group classes before she got sick. So we went to our first class, and this gym was $10 a month. It was pretty horrible. It had bright red wall-to-wall carpeting and rusted machines and a tanning booth. And it was just, but we went to the class, and I don't even remember what the class was called, but it was basically an aerobics class. And it was all old Chinese women and us. And the teacher was an old Chinese woman, and she didn't speak English very well. And I think she mostly made up what she was doing as she did it. So we had no idea we're just kind of trying to keep up and follow along. And I got to be honest, it was awesome. Like, it was so much fun because it was just the right amount of absurdity and bizarreness that it could get me out of my life. But the thing was, in aerobics class, I had to do my best to not watch Julia. Because in that class, her slowness and the physical manifestations of her illness were most obviously on display. Now, when she was discharged, I took 3 months off work in order to stay home and take care of her. And I thought 3 months is going to be plenty of time. Well, she'll be fine. And after 3 months, I had to go back to work to keep up my insurance. And she wasn't fine at all. She was, you could say, worse, because she was openly suicidal at that point. And so I go to work and basically panic all day. And then I'd come home and pretend everything was fine and dance around the house and be goofy and just try to keep life light for her and for me. And this was our life for months. For months, I was her cheerleader and I was her watchman, but I was also terrified and I was slowly falling apart inside. And for months, the doctors, they experimented with so many combinations of drugs and different, tweak this and change that and get rid of this, and nothing was working. Finally, after 9 months, they sat me down and they said, we think it's time we consider ECT. ECT stands for electroconvulsive therapy. And I know that a lot has changed since the 60s and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but when they said to me they wanted to give my wife shock treatment, that's when I knew I was at the edge, and I once again feared, is Julia ever going to get better? But they said, we're going to give it one last try. We're going to give one last drug combination, another shot before we go that route and hope for the best. 2 weeks later, we're in that aerobics class. And I look in one of the mirrors and I see Julia, and she's smiling. You have to understand how rarely she smiled. And I smiled back. And I stopped and I watched her for a little bit. And she was less slow. She was more in control of her body. She was coming back. And I turned and I faced her and I looked in her eyes. For the first time in 9 months, I saw life again. I saw this spark of health that we all take for granted so much. And I knew she was going to make it. And I turned back to that aerobics teacher and I kept going so hard. I thought my arms were going to fall out of their socket. I was so victorious. I met and I fell in love with my wife when I was 18. And I had no idea how demanding and scary love is, how much it asks of us. I had no idea she would get sick. And she has bipolar disorder, which is a lifelong illness. It's going to always be part of her. It's going to always be part of me. I didn't think about that this person is going to someday die. You don't think about that when you're a kid. And I knew that would happen, but I didn't process it.